literature acts as a form of expression for each individual author. Some works mirror society and allows us to better understand the world we live in. However, literature confirms the real complexity of human conflict. This is African Literature on the NTA, Africa's largest television network. I am Nina Bassi. Good to have you. Seize the time, live now, make now the most precious time. Now will never come again. The transiency of life is the focus of this episode.
The greatest reality of life is its transience and delicate nature. This is just another way of saying that life is short and passes often too quickly. To understand the transient nature is to accept the fact that we are all just passing through the earth. We all have a fragile existence on earth. Life is a fleeting, transient, and temporary phenomenon. In fact, transience is the most universal law of all phenomena. Life is both precious and poignant, and so we must be thankful for our short domain on earth. To go on unmindful of the wonders in life and our individual blessings is to be out of touch and perhaps even arrogant. Everything that exists changes and is transient. Change is inevitable because this is a living universe. And we humans are ever changing as well, growing from a fetus to a child, to an adult to an elder in the blink of the cosmic eye. All this change is the essence of life and the essence of existence. This is not something that can be realized through hard research and study. When we truly recognize the transient nature of life, we inevitably become more humble. We come to acknowledge this fact and say to ourselves, yea, no matter how proud and confident I act, I am one little soul struggling with the suffering and impermanence of life. When we see ourselves as one of many oceans suffering, we no longer resent or look down on others because we know that everyone is doing his best to figure out how to be happy and live in a difficult situation. We will begin to have more compassion, more respect, and more grace with the world around us. Even though we feel in each twist and turn of life that life is impermanent, many people nevertheless struggle against the impermanence of human existence. They are accustomed to taking tomorrow for granted, perhaps because of the feeling of emptiness that arises within us when we are faced with the reality of constant change. The reality of the immense cosmos is difficult to bear, so we don't want to look at it. This human life obtained through great difficulties is for a very short period. It is prone to end and its duration is also unpredictable. We do not know when our life will end and all our planning may go haywire. Remember, embracing transience is true wisdom. The only way we can make ourselves last is by leaving behind memories which will last longer than we do. Realizing the importance of every relationship and trying to do something extraordinary is what will make the difference. We will only be remembered by what we have done.
When we realize the shortness of life, we begin to see the importance of making every moment count.
Life is like a play. What matters is not how long the acting lasted, but how good it was. One of the greatest obstacles to life is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. The future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. Orchestra of Her Last Rites, an anthology of poems by Salamatu Sule, is at the heart of the legendary Inikpi who redeemed the Igala kingdom.
Well, I never thought that I'll one day be talking about my book, because my life has always been revolved around other authors' works. And I passionately like to talk about the books that I have read, which makes me an avid reader. So I've been reviewing books for close to 10 years now. And it's a very good thing, because it has also widened my knowledge in terms of the places I'm able to travel through the books. Well, Orchestra of Our Last Rite is my debuted collection of poetry, and is at the heart of the legendary Inikpi, who did so much for her fatherland at the time, I would say, who sacrificed herself for peace to reign. If you're very conversant with the history of the Igala and the Benin, or the Igala and the Jukum people, you will know that Inikpi has played a very critical historical role in redeeming the Igala kingdom, as it were at the time.
Tenant of the Earth, a poem in the collection, looks at the transiency of life, which expects that everyone as a tenant on earth accounts for the life lived.
The title Tenant of the Earth, if you've read the work, you can always connect to it. We're here, we're all temporal beings, and one day we'll take our leaves. So it's how much of the time you have on earth, and what you're able to do while you're still on earth, how many people you've impacted on, and the little that you're able to learn yourself. So that's what Tenant of Earth is all about, to let you know that you're just a tenant and it's just for a while. It's not a permanent residence. So one day you're going to journey beyond, and before you journey beyond, you're going to have your life documented, recorded. So you have to be careful how you live your life on earth. You have to be careful with the kind of people that you have relationships with. So whatever relationship you have with anybody is what you're going to live with. It's going to either be recorded good or bad for you. So I felt like Tenant of the Earth is my kind of salutation, coming to Earth, and to let Earth know that I will be here for a while. And because my cross is here for me to bear, so I am here now, and I'm just going to take the little that Earth has to offer me.
Leadership, accountability, relationship with God and man, temperance of life, and many others are some of the themes highlighted by the poet.
Thematically, Tenant of the Earth is looking at the leadership. It's also looking at the home in itself, and it's also looking at about our relationship with other people, as well as our relationship with God, and our relationship with any other person as well. Yeah. So more importantly is the temporalness of life.
The poem made use of elegant diction, which is straightforward and relatable.
Yeah, so one thing I like about my work is the elegance of diction. I like my language to be very straightforward. I like for the message to sink in. So I don't want, because the reason why a lot of people have shied away from poetry is because of the use of language. A lot of people tell you that languages in poetry is so complicated. Why language in poetry seems to be that way, for me, I felt like I'm passing a very serious message that everyone needs to, for it to sink in. So I did not in any way intend for my diction to be any way complicated or sort of to say.
Metaphor, comparison, and personification are some of the poetic devices deployed by the poet.
The first poetic device that strikes a reader is one, the language use. Then, secondly, you are likely to see comparison. The metaphors are just glaring. For example, I'm here to rejoice, to grieve, and after knowing all your ways, by your kind grace, to take my leave. So you can see personification is almost everywhere. Like you're talking to earth as if earth has assumed that human authority. And you're telling earth is not like the landlord and you are the tenant. So it's like a conversation between a landlord and its tenant.
Salamatu Sule talks about herself and the contribution of other female writers in the African literary world.
For feminism, which has quite gained currency in the globe now, we're talking about literature of inclusiveness. And so feminism is one of such a genre or criticism or theories that has broken through the globe in terms of acceptability, in terms of its radical nature, and all of that. But well, I am a womanist, and I'm unapologetically a womanist because, after all, before the so called advent of radical feminism, women have always had their breakthrough. I want to talk about women like Maimunatu Desiree, who was actually a captive of the colonialist. I mean, she was raped at that tender age, and then she was taken away by the colonial masters, and she still got back into the country to do so much amazing things. She's one of the pioneers of African literature, modern day African literature. So, for African literature, in terms of female writers, their voices are everywhere. This is After the Left, written by Edify. And Edify is a feminist, and she's talked so much about uh, some of the characters who are female and how the society revolt against them and how they were able to also revolt against the society themselves. This is a book by Alajota. Is Kafi. I mean, Kafi is a dancer, and she talked about herself as a woman and how she's been able to, you know, in spite of everything, she danced for money. And as a woman, I mean, instructor, dancing for money is amazing. And there are other women who have been subjugated and they are coming out to talk. And I think it's a good thing that we all talk. But the whole idea of the other side of feminism is what I'm still yet to understand. Yeah, but I think for whatever you're standing for as a woman, you should be able to impact on your society.
She also speaks on her inspiration that led to the poem Tenant of the Earth.
Tenant of the Earth didn't happen by accident because I was at the residency at the Ebedi saying, uh, which is founded by Dr. Wale Okediron. And at the time, Okediron had written a book titled Tenants of the House. Then his experience about the National Assembly. So I wanted to pay that tribute to Okediron at the time. So I felt that I needed to write something that resembles Tenant of the House. So Tenant of the Earth was birthed, and Tenant of the Earth something is something that I saw bigger than Tenant of the House. It was to be the title of the collection, but because then I wanted to also pay that tribute, so I made it a part of the collection. So, Tenant of the Earth, in terms of categorizing it, it's an everyday poem. and it's a nostalgic poem about the poet's persona's reflection about life as a whole.
Art's composition today takes a look at a young woman who has done so well for herself as a literary writer and for other authors by reviewing their works.
Tenant of the Earth, a poem written by Salamatu Sule, looks at life as a passing phase, therefore requiring that humans should make the best out of it. Salamatu Sule, born 26th April to a Nigerian parent, is a poet, an avid reader, and a book reviewer. Attended Model Primary School Asokoro, Abuja, and Government Secondary School Gariki, Abuja. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in English and Literary Studies from Kogi State University, Ayinba. Salamatu is the former Secretary, Association of Nigerian Authors, ANA, Abuja branch, and has held a diplomatic book discourse with the German Embassy, consulted for the Orphans Literary Foundation, and was a managing editor in Lightner magazine from 2018 to 2020. Editor of Arise Igala magazine and arts columnist for Come to Nigeria magazine. Sule is the founder of Falimta Literary Discourse. As a literary agent, she has 2 published works to her credit: Oma, the Drummer Queen, a children's book, and Orchestra of Her Last Rites. She has reviewed several books by prolific authors of fiction and non-fiction. Some of these works include Yorichindere by D.K. Chukwumerije, Hoodlum by Sumaila Umaisha, Diary of a Dead African by Chuma Nwokolo, Crushed by Tokpe Fasua, Before Your Career Disappear by Tokpe Fasua, Death and the King's Grey Hair by Denja Abdullahi, African Romance by Ifeoma Chinwuba, and many more.
Pun, as a form of wordplay, suggests 2 or more meanings by exploring multiple meanings of words. Let's get to find more about this device on our next segment.
The word pun, also called paronomasia, is a form of wordplay which suggests 2 or more meanings by exploiting multiple meanings of words, or of similar sounding words for an intended humorous or rhetorical effect. Puns were first found in ancient Egypt, where they were heavily used in the development of myth and interpretation of dreams. Puns were first found in ancient Egypt, where they were heavily used in the development of myths and interpretation of dreams. The pun can also be seen as a figure of speech, which consists of a deliberate fusion of similar words or phrases for rhetorical effect. Whether humorous or serious, it is a way of using the characteristics of language to cause a word, a sentence, or a discourse to involve 2 or more different meanings. So, humorous or any other effect created by puns depend upon the ambiguities word entails. To pun is to create homonyms as synonyms. Puns may be regarded as in-jokes or idiomatic constructions, especially as their usage and meaning are usually specific to a particular language or its culture. This plays on words may come from words that sound the same but have different spellings or meanings, or one word that itself has more than one meaning. Types of puns. Puns are classified depending on the intentional effect of the phrase. Homophonic pun. This uses paired homonyms, that is, words that sound the same but have different meanings. Example: why is it wet in England? Because many kings and queens have reigned there. This pun interchanges the word reigned and reigned. Compound pun. A compound pun contains more than one pun in the same sentence. Example: never scam in the jungle. Cheaters are always spotted. Homographic pun. This is also referred to as heteronymic pun. It plays on words that are spelled the same way but have a double meaning. Because these puns rely on spelling, they are visual and must read to be understood. Example: time flies like an arrow. Fruit flies like a banana. A visual pun or a graphological pun does not use phonetic writing. Visual puns can be achieved through imagery, graphics, or logos. Recursive pun. These are a two-part pun. One needs to recognize or understand the first part of the pun in order for the second part to make sense. Example: may the fourth be with you. It requires the understanding of the Star Wars movies and the phrase, may the force be with you, as well as the knowledge that May 4th is Star Wars Day. Importance of puns. Puns are a common source of humor in jokes and comic writings or shows. They are often used in the punchlines of jokes, where they typically give a humorous meaning to a rather perplexing story. Puns are used in the title of comedic parodies. Such a title can immediately communicate both that what follows is a parody and to attract audience through attempts at humor. Non-humorous puns were and are a standard poetic device in literature. Puns are also used as persuasive instrument for an author or speaker. Puns and other forms of wordplay are occasionally used for attention-getting or mnemonic qualities, making it common in titles, the names of places, characters, organizations, and in advertising, as well as slogans.
African women have indeed carved out a niche in the literary world and have done well for themselves. Our wise saying will come up next. And on that note, I will say, Nigeria is our own and there's no place like home. Enjoy the rest of your day.